Stephen, we had a story that we wanted to take a closer look at. And if you're in the world of data protection, this was a pretty big news release last week because Cohesity is set to acquire the data protection assets of Veritas in a huge deal. Cohesity will be picking up the NetBackup portfolio as well as their SaaS offering, Alta. The move is seen as a bolster to Cohesity both in their cloud offerings as well as traditional on-prem enterprise data protection and backup. The deal will merge the two companies. It's now valued at about $3 billion, but the company combined will be worth about $7 billion. The remaining parts of Veritas that aren't picked up in the deal will actually be rebranded as a company called DataCo, and the CEO of Veritas will sit on the board of Cohesity as well as be an advisor. Stephen, this was huge news, and I know that our coworkers over at the Futurum Group have been talking a lot about what this means for the data protection space, but I wanted to get your take on it because you've had a lot of experience with these companies in the past. What does this big merger really mean?
Well, if you're not familiar with data protection, I think that it's important to take a moment to appreciate the history and the importance of what we're talking about here. So many years ago, when I was just starting my IT career, most open systems were backed up with a product called NetBackup by a company called OpenVision. That was the first backup technology that I implemented as a systems administrator back in the mid 90s. And this competed with a product called Backup Exec, Legato, other companies, ADSM, things like that. Veritas acquired OpenVision in 1997 in order to basically consolidate their control over the storage management market. Veritas was also a key technology in terms of their volume manager, volume replicator, that sort of thing. Essentially, as somebody like me who was an enterprise storage administrator throughout the 90s, Veritas was not just an important company, it was the important company for people like me who were building enterprise storage solutions at scale for big, big enterprises. And so when I see the news here, it really is important. I mean, this is effectively, it would be like a company acquiring an important platform like Windows or IBM mainframe or something like that. It's that important in terms of the data protection market. NetBackup is it. Now, Veritas and Symantec merged in 2004 to 2014. They demerged. Veritas is going its own way. And those of you who aren't aware, since that demerger, Veritas has actually worked extremely hard to bring NetBackup up to modern standards. It's very, very hard to do this. In fact, many companies, what they'll do is they'll use a spin out or an independent company to develop a next generation product because it's just so hard to bring the current generation product up to date. But that's really what Veritas has spent the last, I don't know, 7, 8 years doing, is bringing their product platform up to date to the extent that now in 2024, NetBackup is kind of a whole new thing. It's a pretty nice data protection platform, and it's every bit competitive with some of the younger, newer, more nimble startups out there. At the same time, what's happened is we've seen all of these other companies appear, including Cohesity. So Cohesity was a company that was launched just in 2013. This is a company, by the way, that if you look at the Tech Field Day videos, you can see the growth and expansion of this company. Again, this is a next generation data protection company. They have been building a tremendous product out there. They're kind of going a different direction than some of the others. They're not building a backup product that competes directly with NetBackup. And so to have the Cohesity product line, which has been expanded with security features and so on, to have it incorporate the assets of this historic and important and widely used and actually incredibly credible product line from the NetBackup side, well, honestly, it looks really great to me because what we're doing is we're basically bringing together two best of breed solutions here in the market. And it hopefully will continue the development. I think it's important to note they're not just acquiring the source code or something. They're basically taking on most of the capabilities of Veritas, most of the things that Veritas has built over the last few years, including software developers, product managers, all this sort of thing. And they're going to marry that with the incredible data protection platform that they've built themselves. It makes a lot of sense to me. Tom, I wonder if you can talk a little bit more about some of the security and sort of non-data protection features here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that your outline of the fact that they have done a lot of work at making NetBackup a very premier solution speaks volumes about the fact that Cohesity bought NetBackup. They didn't buy Backup Exec. And that is a big deal because when you look at the changing landscape of all of the security that's going on now, you have to have a rapidly evolving platform. I mean, we've talked to a number of companies in the last year or so, and the things that they're doing with detection and response go far above and beyond what I would consider to be traditional data retention and restoration. Little things like entropy detection. I can no longer encrypt these files, which means, or I can no longer compress these files, which means they must be encrypted, which means they must have gotten hit by ransomware, which means we need to start a containment procedure. And that's all happening in the background. You get a report going, hey, I think that this volume on this array is compromised. Like that reduces dwell time to hours instead of days or weeks. And I think that that is something that you need to have today to get ahead of where cyber criminals are. I mean, when you look at the number of folks that are A, encrypting your data and then holding it for ransom, or B, threatening to steal it and, oh, hey, we're going to release this on the internet if you don't pay. I mean, it's a pretty good extortion scheme when you think about it. Well, we're going to set aside the folks that are going to release the data for a minute because there's really not a lot you can do there. But if you've encrypted all this data and the backups are good, like, fine, I don't care. Go ahead. I'm not going to pay. That's not an option that you've had in years past, but it only works if you have a somewhat modern backup solution. If you're still, I hate to say it, but if you're still backing things up to tape with a program like Backup Exec, you're kind of in trouble because if you're not monitoring those solutions to know, well, yeah, the last time we had a backup that wasn't encrypted was like 8 months ago. Like you have to have visibility into the system. And I think that that's one of the things that data protection is really kind of bringing to the forefront is the ability to provide observability and analytics into your backup set, your secondary storage, which is a thing that Cohesity has talked about for a really long time. And I think that part of the driver for this is getting that kind of solution not only in the cloud, but also on-prem. And both of these companies kind of played in both areas. And if you read some of the interviews with the Cohesity folks, they'll say that these are complementary solutions. They're not competing solutions. And that's important because they're trying to address a much larger customer base. You're always going to have people that are not going to want to go to the cloud, whether they're hesitant to do it or they just don't have the ability, like highly regulated industries that rely a lot on really good backups. You have people that are going to jump into the cloud with both feet and hope they have a parachute. You have a solution that can address both, can keep the data secure and safe. And I think that cannot be underscored enough that it's not just that the companies want to make sure that they have a good backup they can go to. It's that they have reliable reporting that tells them that this is an immutable backup that hasn't been compromised that I can roll back to in the event that this happens. Because remember, most of these crews that strike you, they can strike in minutes and have a large swath of data just immediately corrupted if you don't have any other security controls in place. And that's what they're counting on, is that they can beat the next backup window so that you don't have an option to roll back to.
And I think that that's the key to understanding what Cohesity has been doing. So the whole company was created and developed in this world that ransomware is a thing, that data protection isn't just about, oops, I deleted that file, let me get it back, that data protection is a strategic asset for companies. If you look at what Cohesity built, again, they're not just a backup company. This is a company that primarily is building what they call data platform, and it is basically what it sounds like. It's a data platform where you can store and manage data in a variety of ways. Now, certainly, you can use data, you can do data protection on it. They were brought in Data Protect, Pegasus. You can also do things like ransomware protection. They have a thing called Fort Knox. Well, clearly, data platform is a great platform for storing data, and having NetBackup be the one that is going to store data on data platform, well, that's just good for customers. But I think there's another aspect to this too, and that's sort of the go-to-market aspect. So at Gestalt IT, we've always been more focused on sort of what the product is and how it works and how people are using it than the overall market stuff. But now that as part of Futurum Group, we have access to analysts and intelligence as well, I'd like to bring a little bit of that into the conversation here too. So our colleagues and longtime friends, Camberly Bates and Krista McComber over at Futurum Research, they point out that one of the things that this does as well is it instantly makes Cohesity one of the key players in the entire enterprise software market. So with Cohesity and Veritas together, we're talking about a company that's going to have more than 10,000 customers out there. We're talking about a company that's going to have 96 of the Fortune 100 and 80% of the Global 500 as customers. So if you were wondering what the market impact of this combination is, I think it's safe to say it's absolutely massive. Obviously, the deal is going to be expensive. Obviously, there's going to be debt. There's going to be all sorts of reasons to be a little bit cautious about what this is going to do to Cohesity as a company. But I think that it is safe to say that this is strapping a rocket to Cohesity. And suddenly, Cohesity becomes probably the most important company in the data protection market, which is something that the company has been struggling with, obviously, for a long time because there's a lot of companies in this market. Well, now there's a lot of companies and there's Cohesity. And I think that that is a real game changer.